Have you noticed something has happened to the way we talk to each other? It's gotten really loud, even hateful sometimes. In a 2019 survey, 93% of us felt that public rudeness was on the rise, and most of us saw that as a real problem. We can change this. As it is now, there are families who don't talk to each other anymore. Lifelong friends, calling each other names. And we seem to be afraid of each other. We're afraid of anyone who doesn't look like us. We're afraid of anyone who doesn't think like us. And we are really suspicious of anyone across the political aisle. Not only are we afraid, we're mad. We yell at each other on Facebook and Twitter. We try to outshout each other in discussions as if that somehow makes our point. But you know what it makes? Chaos, hurt feelings. And it doesn't change any minds or solve any problems. And we have a lot of problems. There are so many important issues we could be working on, and plenty of good people to do that work. But we can't do it if we're not talking to each other. We can't really find solutions if we're not working together. And the way back to being able to work together is going to require civility. I know, I hear it all the time. Not everyone feels like being civil. Some days I'm right there with you. But without it, we're sunk. I've lived a lot of my life in really cold places, northern New York, Minnesota, and in those places we know the value of a snowplow. Why? Because a snowplow makes a path. It may be a narrow path if the snow is deep, but it makes it possible to get there from here. It makes it possible to get to work. You don't have to stay stuck. Well, civility is like that snowplow. It creates a path. It makes it possible for you to get to work. Now, it doesn't make the path any smoother. It doesn't melt the snow, but it gives you a way to start. You have a way to get to where you want to be, where we can talk to each other, where we can work together, where we can make progress. Without that path, the way is much slower, much harder, much colder. And so much depends on that narrow path. What, you might wonder, what really depends on a civil path? Well, pretty much anything that requires relationships with other people requires civility. For example, what's the major predictor of divorce? Contempt. Contempt, which is a lack of civility, a lack of regard for the other person. Without a civil attitude, marriages fail. Work projects. Have you ever been on a team where one or two members are snarky and disrespectful? How did the work go? How much of your time and energy was spent trying not to be insulted or put down? You see, we feel threatened when people are uncivil, and so we can't be as productive or creative. Incivility takes a bite out of our effectiveness. And then there's families. Who has a family member who's uncivil? What's the impact on family gatherings? How relieved are you if that person calls up and says, I'm not going to be able to make it to Thanksgiving dinner? Whew. Ooh, suddenly everyone can breathe again. But you can't be close. Now, by civility, I do not mean giving up your beliefs or your opinions. I am not talking about going along to get along. Merriam-Webster defines civility as civil conduct, especially courtesy, politeness, but not phony politeness, not sarcastic courtesy, but real courtesy based on valuing the other person. When we asked the people on Whidbey Island, where I live, what does civility mean to you? The word that came up most often was respect. Respect is the heart of civility. To be able to stand in your own strong beliefs and opinions and state them respectfully, that's civility. To feel really strongly about something and listen courteously to another view before you state your own, that's also civility. So if respect is the bottom line on being civil, and since so much depends on civility to keep those paths open, we could teach ourselves to become more civil. We could learn to have civility as our regular natural response, making relationships and progress possible. We can clear the way between here and there using respect. But how? How do you stay civil enough to work with people, golf with people, live with people who think differently than you do? Good news, bad news. Good news. It can be done, and it's pretty simple. Bad news, you have to want to, and you have to practice. More good news, there's even a secret weapon. So what do? How do you keep that narrow path open when you're feeling provoked? How can you make civil your natural default response when you're all riled up? I'll answer that. I'll start with a little story. One of my jobs as a nurse was to be the nursing supervisor at the King County Jail in Seattle. Big jail, lots of inmates, serious charges, rape, murder, you name it. Some of our patients were really tough characters. So one day, I followed a nurse as he went from one housing unit to another seeing patients. Every now and then, one of them would become really hostile, start yelling at the nurse, calling him names, threatening him. Every time it happened, it was really unnerving to me. He just took it in stride. He'd say something like, "I think that's about what we can do today." So when we finished, I said to him, "How do you stay so calm, so kind, in the face of that aggressive behavior?" And he shrugged and he said, I decided early on in this job, it doesn't matter who they show up as. My job stays the same. It doesn't really matter how other people show up. Your job stays the same. He was doing his job, offering care to some really high-need patients, no matter who they were in that moment. His response was always civil. In fact, his response was north of civil. His was actually kind. So with that in mind, I have some suggestions for how to keep that plowed civil path intact. How to make your default response a civil one. Here's a 3-step practice. 1. When you feel yourself being provoked, take a deep breath. Whether it's an annoying neighbor or a fussy toddler or your impossible brother-in-law, it always helps to start with a nice deep breath. When you're being provoked by a very skilled provoker, that deep breath signals your body and your brain to just hold up for a beat. Whoa, girl. 2, while you're taking that breath, ask yourself, what's my job here? I don't mean your reactive impulse, like my job is to punch their lights out, or my job is to be right. My job is to show them who's boss, right? No, those are your reactions. I'm talking about your job, your capital J job. What's my job here? My job is to get this project off the ground, or to raise this child to be a decent human being, or my job is to get closer to my partner. You see, with that small pause, you're giving yourself the chance to remember why you're really here. You're reminding yourself of the important reason you are here right now, your capital J job. So some idiot does something mean or provocative, threatening, rude. You take a breath. You get in touch with your capital J job. And then 3. Do that job. That's it. Period. Offer care to that guy who's withdrawing from heroin. Refocus your team so they can make some progress. Stay close to your daughter by listening courteously to your son-in-law. When you remember your capital J job and do it, you're much more likely to respond, not react. And your response is much more likely to be a civil one. You will have lots of opportunities to practice, maybe too many. Practice when you're in the car and someone's on your bumper. What's my capital J job? To get to work safely, or get these Cub Scouts to their meeting, or my capital J job is to go another 100 miles and find a motel. Do that job. Now, when it's a situation where you're face to face and you're disagreeing with someone, that's when you might need a little secret weapon to help you stay civil. It's something you can use in many situations, but it's really good when someone's being insistent, when you feel yourself getting provoked. Suddenly, you want to outshout or one-up that person, or present that coup de grace of facts to end all facts. Learn to recognize when you feel this way. Uh-oh, I really want to put this guy in his place. Or, oh, I know I'm right on this one. Or, oh, I hate this argument. It is such BS. Okay, are you there? You feel it? Now is when you need that secret weapon. And that weapon is curiosity. If you are honestly curious, it can be like a magic potion on a disagreement. So here you go. Joe from Personnel is mouthing off in the lunchroom again about some political point that you don't agree with. You feel yourself gathering the facts. You are locked and loaded with all the information that's going to put Joe under the table. Take a deep breath. Remember what your capital J job is. My job is to stay connected to Joe. I have to work with this guy. And to stay true to my own beliefs. Both. Do that job. Stay connected without relinquishing your beliefs. Invoke that secret weapon. Be curious. Joe, I've heard you talk about this before. I'm interested to understand how you came to feel so strongly about whatever it is. Can you help me see how you got here? Now, at this point, your job changes a little bit. When you're curious, your job is to listen. Listening alone is an act of civility. It clears a path between you and the other person, and it paves it with understanding. Now, what your job is not. Your job is not to change Joe's mind. Your job is not to be right or to win. Even though those things might feel good, they aren't your job. Your job is to stay connected, keep your beliefs, and listen. It's your job. Sadly, you may not be able to share your own strong beliefs with Joe. That's kind of a bump up from simple civility. That's more like respectful relationship. But guess what? Civility clears that path in case it's possible at some point to share both ways. Some people just seem to be naturally more civil in their responses, less reactive. But unless you're a trained therapist or a saint, I'm pretty sure you're going to be bad at this, sometimes at least. Me? I'm Irish. I had a lot to learn. I am still learning. This is not a quick fix. This is a practice. This is a way of being in the world, one that opens minds, clears the path. You need to practice it the way you practice anything you want to be good at, like getting a better tennis backhand or learning to play the guitar. You do it again and again and again, and then you notice it starts to become natural. It starts to be second nature to do it well. I do feel as though I should give a little disclaimer here. This practice is not for everyone. If your energy or your income depends on being angry or on getting people to hate each other, you will not be interested in this practice. If, on the other hand, you're a problem solver who cares about connections, you can use this. I'm a nurse. It is literally in my job description to care for people. When I keep my capital J job in mind, it makes it so much easier to respond, not just react. With practice, you'll be better and better at responding comfortably. I'm better at it than I used to be. Most of my responses fall squarely in the civil column. Sometimes they lean right in toward kind. We need at least a small path to stay open through confusion, so we can get there from here, so we can get to work, so we don't have to stay stuck. When you are doing your capital J job, that path stays open. We're going to need civility to get anything meaningful done. You and I can become more naturally civil with that 3-step practice. And when things get snarly, we can pull out that secret weapon of curiosity. So here's my last suggestion for you. Keep your strong beliefs and opinions. Keep your passion and your feistiness. And keep it civil. So much depends on it. Thank you for listening.